Emma had always thought her life would be perfect. She had dreams of a career in design, a cozy home, and a family that understood her. But life didn't play by her rules. Her job was stressful, her parents expected too much, and her closest friends seemed too busy with their own lives to notice her struggles. One day, after a particularly tough week at work, Emma sat alone in her small apartment, overwhelmed by the weight of her problems. "Why does everything have to be so hard?" she muttered to herself. The next day, Emma decided to take a walk in the park to clear her mind. She noticed an old man sitting on a bench with a small weathered bag at his side. He looked at her and smiled warmly. "You seem troubled, young lady," he said gently. Emma hesitated but eventually sat beside him. "Life just feels too much, like I'm carrying a weight I can't put down." The man nodded knowingly. "Ah, the weight of life. Let me show you something." From his bag, he pulled out a large stone. "This," he said, placing it in her hands, "is your problem." Emma frowned. "What am I supposed to do with it?" "You carry it for a while," he replied. Confused but intrigued, Emma followed him as they walked together. At first, carrying the stone wasn't too difficult, but as they walked, it grew heavier in her hands. Her arms began to ache and her pace slowed. "How do I get rid of this thing?" she asked, frustrated. The old man smiled. "That's the thing about problems. You can't always get rid of them immediately, but you can choose how you carry them." He then showed her how to balance the stone differently in her hands. Suddenly, the weight didn't feel as overwhelming. "See," he said, "problems are a part of life. If you try to resist them or run from them, they'll only feel heavier. But if you accept them and adjust your grip, you'll find ways to carry on." Emma thought about her struggles, the demanding job, her parents' expectations, and her sense of loneliness. Maybe the problem wasn't the problems themselves, but the way she let them consume her. They reached a riverbank, and the old man placed his own stone into the water. "Sometimes," he said, "problems need time to dissolve. But even as they fade, new ones will come. That's the flow of life. It's not about avoiding problems. It's about learning to live with them and grow stronger through them." Emma looked at the stone in her hands. It felt lighter now, as if his words had eased her burden. She carefully placed it in the river and watched as the current carried it away. That evening, Emma returned home feeling a sense of peace she hadn't felt in months. Her problems hadn't disappeared, but her perspective had shifted. She started taking things one step at a time, communicating her feelings with her parents, setting boundaries at work, and reaching out to old friends. Whenever life felt heavy, she would close her eyes and remember the old man's words. "You can't avoid the weight of life, but you can choose how to carry it." And slowly, Emma realized that problems weren't the enemy. They were the teachers that helped her grow stronger, wiser, and more resilient.